It is now time to experience the buzz, a podcast that takes an inside look at amazing people doing amazing things. Get ready for some great conversation that will be fascinating, educational, and inspiring. We will also leave room to help small businesses in a big way. Now, here's your host, entrepreneur Steve Buzzard.
Hello everyone, Steve Buzzard here for Experience the Buzz. We are here, episode number 101. The train keeps rolling, and we want to thank you for diving in today to another episode of ETB. And today we are going to be featuring Jackie Coursey. She is with Sacred Space Coaching. She is a life autism coach. Pretty interesting conversation coming your way. More on Jackie in just a moment. Now it's time for What's the Buzz? What's the Buzz? We are still celebrating episode number 100. If you did not get a chance to either listen to it or view it on our YouTube channel, I invite you, take a listen. It was Bruce and Lori Anapolsky. And what was real cool about the conversation, outside the fact that we talked about fashion and we talked about clothing and the amazing store that the Anapolskys run here in the capital of Sacramento, ironically, they are celebrating 100 years of business. That's right. Bruce is a third generation family member of the business. Pretty cool stuff. And on top of that, I invite you to check out segment number 3. So we did 2 segments with Bruce and Lori. And then third segment, we go back to those that have been on the program. And you can check out videos of people talking about their experience on the podcast, as well as me reading a letter from our top listener, Dee Coughlin. That's right. I'm still giving her love because the letter was incredible. And so really, it's a salute to what has been a fun journey, and I look forward to continuing it. And that is What's the Buzz. Now, let's dive into episode 101, Jackie Coursey. It's Sacred Space Coaching. She is an autism life coach. Enjoy the conversation. Hello, everyone. It is Experience the Buzz. I am your host, Steve Buzzard, and I am so glad you joined us today because we've got another conversation for you. And this is pretty cool because we just wrapped up episode number 100. So today's guest, Jackie Coursey, gets to be episode 101. Jackie, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here, Steve.
Yeah, it's so good to have you. And so we're just going to kick it off here. So
Okay.
Jackie, what she does is she is actually a life coach, but she's an autism life coach, which is very fascinating for me. We had a guest on within the 100 episodes that we had, Marie Kofer, who's a life coach. But here we take a life coach to a different level. And I am very interested in exploring this subject with Jackie. But as we always do, we got to talk about connection. You know, this show is really about highlighting people of Sacramento. And I think we've done a great job of that, of being able to bring people within this format to just hear their story. And so I always like to start off with connection. There's a lot of guests that I don't know that are brought to me, but I definitely know Jackie. In fact, I go way back to those days at St. Michael's with your twins coming in, Ben and Emma, a little bit later, Desmond, and those were some great years, were they not?
We did, especially we had a ball there because of Buzzard Ball.
That's right.
All
That's
of my
right.
kids, I can't wait for my grandkids to do that with your group. Yes, absolutely.
Oh, that's big. So let's just start right there because I know
Yeah.
we talked a little bit about it before we came on. You know, Ben and Emma now, what you said, 21 years old.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, when I think of these kids that are now grown adults, I still picture them, you know, as kindergartners, first, second graders, kind of like that. So I have to imagine it's been a fun journey watching them grow up. And then we'll throw Desmond in there too, because I got to see a little bit of him before you guys moved to another school. But boy, how exciting.
It was exciting and just a nice way to start our life with, you know, being over there at St. Michael's and you being a big part of it. I just think I remember watching your kids and mine marching into chapel.
Those are
those little uniforms on, right?
Yeah. Yeah, those Wednesday chapels, which, by the way, it's interesting because when I talk about my teaching career, which, you know, I'm now 2 years retired. I taught PE. I was the athletic director, did intramurals, loved all those aspects. But my favorite aspect of St. Michael's was running Wednesday chapel. I loved running Wednesday chapel. Because what you found, Jackie, because I know you were an active participant, right? I would always say that, yeah, I'm here for the kids, but I always loved when the adults came too and enjoyed that message, because truly the message is for everyone. It's not just for the kids, it's for everyone.
You inspired us up there. That was, yes, good times. And Desmond actually ended up being baptized over in that little chapel over there.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, my youngest. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about your current work right now, Sacred Space Coaching.
Yes.
I was real excited because this is not your first podcast. I got to listen to one of the podcasts that you were on that really dove into the subject, and that's why I got to get Jackie on and talk about this because, wow, I'll let you just describe what it is. I said Autism Life Coach, and maybe you can expand from there.
Absolutely. I ended up, a good friend asked me to consider becoming a coach for autistic adults. And I wasn't quite, sure what that was all about. And I ended up being in class learning about coaching. And it was very specifically geared toward neurodivergent folks and, autistic and other kind of diversity. And when I was in that class, there were peers of mine that were autistic. And so I was in there, kind of being polite, and I'll see what this is all about. And my autistic peers, their stories of what life was like to be an autistic person in today's society where things are tough. It's tough to go that route. I was hooked, and I decided at that moment, after a couple of lectures, that this is what I would do in my last chapter of my life. I was in nonprofit all my life until this point. I had worked on disaster services for Red Cross in San Diego in my early years, ran Heart Walks here in Sacramento before the kids came, even did a little bit of time at Salvation Army. And another thing that I loved about coaching is we'd raise the funds, but never really get to see the people we were helping. And here with coaching, you're one-on-one watching someone change their life and, have a better go of it. So yes. So what I do is I spend time with some young adults and then some folks. My oldest client was 82 and usually they're in some kind of a transition, even if they're 82, like there was a woman who was new to the area and making friends and needed help with that. And we sit down and we make a 6 to 8 week goal about some part of their life that they want help with. And together we kind of jump in and figure out what are the obstacles. What can we do about the situation? Maybe there's something at their workplace that isn't working, or they want to date. Sometimes people come and they've not had their first kiss yet. And that's their goal, their first kiss. It's beautiful.
Wow.
So it's fun. And they don't want to talk to mom and dad about that, just like my kiddos would not want to talk to me about that. So it's nice. I'm kind of like one step removed.
Yes.
Like just last week it came up again. One of my clients, he's like, I really just want that first kiss, Jackie. Let's put that right on the sheet. That is what I want. It's like
no goal is too big.
No. Our 6 week goal is the first kiss, and let's see what the obstacles are. So
my goodness,
it's really pretty fun. And again, it's like all of us as human beings, we just need to have someone in our corner and watching out for us and helping us. There's a young man that's away at college, and we were very involved on his test taking and his, every part about being the transition from high school to college. And now he feels like he's got it. So his only thing is he mixes up the 1 o'clock classes with the 2 o'clock classes. So there's an alarm on my phone. He's asked me to just text him on the 1 o'clock days to say, hey, are you in school yet? So just like this little minimal thing that we do now, but it could be that, or it could be totally in the trenches of, helping them travel, helping them get a job, stay in the job, just about anything you do that a life coach would do with, any human being, but it's a little extra.
Jackie, I mean,
Mhm.
here's what captures me is, and we're going to get into like your kids because that
Mhm.
situation is unique in itself.
Yeah.
And just knowing who you are, like you've got such a kind heart. You got a very good disposition about you. You're very calm. That's kind of that's the vibe
Mhm.
I get from you, right?
Thank
So
you.
this does not surprise me that you're doing this, but it doesn't seem like it would be the path because
Mm.
normally with, okay, being a life coach, I get that. But an autism life coach,
Yeah.
you would think, okay, maybe there's something within your family that
Mhm.
you've experienced, but actually, that's not the case. This is very unique. You actually
Yeah.
have someone that inspired you to go this route.
Yes, yes. So first, what happened, even before, like if we think about that individual that I'll talk
Hmm.
about, Desmond, my youngest, my baby at 15, 16, 4, or 6 feet 4 inches tall now, he and I both have ADHD, and there's a lot of similarities. So when I was learning about this, I could connect with, oh yeah, I know what executive dysfunction is. Every drawer here is a junk drawer. So there are a lot of things people were talking about. But a friend came in my life who is in his 20s, and it's through the reconfiguration of my family,
Hmm.
and that I know this young man, and he has been an amazing inspiration in my life. He went from, sometimes he'd be driving and pulled over and have an anxiety attack, and someone would have to come get him, and he just would be home all day. And now he is a chef. He's going to be going back to college. The kid's father, my ex husband, has a law firm. This young man cooks for everyone a couple times a month. It's just beautiful. And it taught me that when you have a support system as an adult, like we do for kids, when
Hmm.
you do that as adults, that will change a life and help someone have a you know, great life.
So connect the dots for me. So
Yes.
you have that inspiration there,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
ADHD for yourself,
Yes.
Desmond going through it. Someone says, "Hey, you ought to be a life coach." Then
Hmm.
it's like, well, not only be a life coach, but for autistic
Yeah.
people, how did that all connect?
What kept happening for me is I knew that adulting is hard anyway, and the transition from high school to college, or from college to work life, that's already, those are challenging times.
Right.
And then throw autism in there, and I always say it's like transition with steroids.
Hmm.
So it was so compelling, because you look at autistic folks, I mean, there's so much beauty and so much intelligence, but there are things that get in the way of having a good life. It could just be like, I have a young man who just, people clearing their throats when he's at college will make him have to leave the classroom.
Hmm.
So, like, to be a coach and just figure out, what do we do with that, and research that together. How do we handle that so you can stay in class when someone's clearing their throat, because you have high sensitivities when many autistic people have. So it just was so interesting to me that you could make these adjustments in someone's life, and they could be happy and content, and so the next thing comes up, just like us.
Right.
So that just, I found that was just so exciting to see that, and to see someone have a good a good life, and be happy.
And so I'm curious, like I always, when I talk to like small business owners doing their
Hmm.
own thing, figuring out that entrepreneur
Yeah.
journey and stuff, your first client, like what was that like going into your first client? Who was it? Don't have to name a name, but
Yeah.
what was that experience like for you?
It was so interesting. Before I talk about my first autistic client, when I had to get my 100 hours in of, and it was like just having folks that would see me,
Mhm.
whoever who wanted to work on a goal, it was so interesting, because whoever came into my life that I would be helping them, maybe there was a college situation, or again, some lonely elderly folks, they always had someone very close to them that was autistic. So
Hmm.
we'd end up coming into a discussion about autism anyway when I was getting those hours. And then my first client was, I'm trying to think, it was a college age student who was having a hard time working with his family, He is 20 years old, and the challenge was his family understood autism. I think he was diagnosed at like a year and a half. And they, they'd been taught about it, they got it. But now, and this happens a lot, I have parents as clients too, because that's the age where the mom and dad start freaking out.
Right.
Because they're like, I know there's autism, maybe there's even ADHD, but I have to know that my young adult is going to be okay when I'm no longer alive. And they'll want to say, let's just put autism aside. We just got to go for it and work hard and like almost pretend it doesn't exist. That's what the parents will want to do because they're so nervous about their kiddo being okay, their adult kiddo. And so with this client, it was not only helping him like with sensory issues and, after working all day or at college, but talking to his parents and we actually sat down and did a slide presentation and reminded ourselves of what autism was and that you don't grow out of it. And another thing that we did was I realized as a coach, my lane, and this is super important to talk about, my lane is helping you accomplish a goal. And it could even be that goal is making your room, your sanctuary when you come home after all the stress and turmoil of the day. But where my line, try that one more time, where my lane is not, is being your mental health care provider.
That's a big one, yes.
So there's a lot of times I'll say, let's stall. And our new goal is finding you mental health care. And then I can help you do little things to tweak your life so that you can be okay. But if they call it autistic burnout, if you're an autistic burnout and your brain is fried and your nervous system is shut down, my helping you get your first kiss or, get more friends or get a new job is not going to go anywhere until we take care of this emergency first. And those
Jackie,
are the kinds of things. Yeah.
Let's reiterate that because you're right. That is a big thing because what is a life coach and what isn't a life coach? And I know you kind of hit on there, but reiterate that because I think people get that confused with what you are doing with your position.
Yeah, I'm not a consultant. I am not a mentor. I am not a boss. I'm not mom and dad. I'm not a mental health care provider. I'm not a therapist. And sometimes people do get confused on that last one on, can you help me with therapy? Because there's waiting lists for getting into good autistic therapists. But
you can be that bridge though. Like you said, I can refer you to this person, it may not happen tomorrow, but at least you kind of have that bridge to help them get where they need if they need it.
Absolutely. And having for the young adults, for them learning to build that team of professionals around them will help. That's like the biggest, we'll want to cut this part because I'm not going to get it quite right.
It's okay.
We have our greatest chance of a good outcome when a young person becomes an adult and they know how to build that system for themselves. And they're at the helm now, where maybe the mom and dad were at the helm, or there was some other, person that when they were young, that was managing things. Now having them manage this team of people, like for this young person, I meet with the therapist. We have a meeting once a month and say, how are we doing with this individual? And then anyone else that comes on the scene, if we're kind of building that support around that person, they have the greatest chance of success. That's what I wanted to say.
We're going to do a reset here. This is Jackie Coursey. We go way back, but we have her on the program today as she is talking about her life right now as an autism life coach, which is very amazing. As we finish out this first segment of the conversation, I know people out there, including myself, would say, okay, what's the process, right? How do people find you? We're going to put the information, but how does that conversation start where they even seek you out? Because I imagine for parents, there has to be that point, like you said, where it's either a transition. They're like, what do we do?
Right.
How do they get to you?
They will find me on sacredspacecoaching.net. And what we do is we have a sit down. If they are in the Sacramento area, we can meet somewhere, if they want it to be in person, or we can have a Zoom session, and it's absolutely free. And we talk about what the issues are and try to find out if we're a match. And I kind of hinted at it earlier. Sometimes I'm helping parents learn how to become coaches of their adult living in the home. And then sometimes I'm working with the adult or the young adult and helping them do whatever it is. Maybe it's just to learn how to adult. But they have that first call with me on, sometimes it's even a phone call if the person doesn't like to be on camera. And we have sessions that way when folks don't want to have this kind of, eye contact and that kind of stuff. But we have that first session, we find out if we're a good match, and then we usually meet for a few months, usually once a week, and we figure out, again, what's the plan, what are the obstacles, what are we trying to do together, and then we go for it.
I'm curious, Jackie, what are the main pillars of your business? Like, what do you set in place to say, this is who I am and what I can do for you?
Sure. The biggest thing I set in place is and it's why I called it sacred space. To me, that is sacred time together with that person. And it is, think of all of our lives. How often do we set aside time to just be and think about what we want?
Not often enough.
Not often enough. So that is what this time is, even more than my being there for that person, is setting aside that time and space to say, I'm working on me. And then knowing you've got someone alongside you, which is me, that you trust. So we work to build some trust. And that isn't something that happens immediately. And that can get a little complicated because if a parent hires me, I have to say, like, even though you're paying, it's confidential, and I'll share what the individual says I can share, but it's between that person and me, and they need to be able to trust me, and it is their goals. It isn't, sometimes it's like, I would just like, my 29-year-old to be able to talk to the relatives when they come over. And that smart 29-year-old knows they're mean people. Why would I want to do that? They're very smart about, a lot of the folks I talk to. It's like, why would Aunt Betty's really mean? Why would, your son doesn't know why you still talk to Aunt Betty,
Right.
So, but I'll, it'll be whatever it'll be. And sometimes I can help, us kind of, add that a little bit in what the parents are hoping can happen, but it really has to be that individual's goals. And again, they're knowing I'm working for them. I'm working for that person. And we build trust, we build safety, and and another thing that I'm available for, other than directing them with open-ended questions to think about what they want, because maybe someone will say, I really want to move out of the area, but I can't. It's never going to happen. I'll ask questions to kind of get us moving in a certain direction that I know will help the person see, well, you might be able to. Maybe you can do this. Let's look at this. Let's maybe dip our toe in. And does that help? Am I
absolutely.
Well,
I'm just, I'm looking at from my perspective, like, what are the things that I would be curious about when it relates to what you do? And the next one that comes to mind too, and I know it varies, the journeys vary, but what is a normal course of time that someone does spend with you?
I would say typical amount of time, and I've got people that have been with me from the very beginning, and I have people that are with me a shorter amount of time, but I would say we end up spending about 3 months together.
Okay.
And it's because it's very goal oriented, and usually the first goal isn't what the ending goal is, because you tease things out as you talk.
Sure.
But I would say 3 months is typical.
And I am curious about like the clients that you have, especially the one when you mentioned going to college. Like, to me, that's a huge transition.
It is
right?
a huge transition.
Exactly. Yeah. And to be a piece of that, like you said, okay, I'll text you the time or whatever, but how does that look? Because, Yeah, you're in place, but they are working independently just because they're in a space by themselves that has you in a totally different area.
Right. So if I'm so blessed as to be with them before they go away, we work on a plan. And it's like syllabus, probably when you were in high school, the teachers were babying you a little bit about that. Now, no one's going to say, hey, did you get that assignment in? Like figuring out the tricks of the trade with the professor. How does that person communicate? Maybe they don't even say anything about a test coming up next week. We've got to read everything together and figure out where is the mental health area, where you can get some counseling if you need it. Where are you going to eat? Mom and dad, or big sister or brother. I think of that big with Emma, my daughter, with my son, would pack up his backpack for him when she was still home. Nobody's doing that at college, right? So it'd be like, okay, so what are you going to do if you oversleep? You pack up the backpack with everything you need the night before, including maybe breakfast, something that could be breakfast, and have it on a chair, and it's always on that same chair, so that when you wake up and you go, oh my God, I'm a half hour late, breakfast is in there, and everything you need, and you just go kind of thing. So we talk about that. And then maybe the big thing that comes up is my roommate. We don't live similar lives, and they're up all night, and I need the lights off and all that. So we problem solve on how to do that. And then again, we talked about building your support system, like RAs, is that going to be your person? Is it your roommate, or is there a club to make time for clubs and things? Because one thing I'm finding is many autistic people are very literal. So like you heard me talking on that other podcast with the host, where people had told him, like, do this and do this and do this, and never talked about breaks or having fun when he was doing college or his master's. So he wasn't doing any of those things. He wrote down what he was supposed to do and followed it, and then wasn't eating well, wasn't sleeping well, wasn't having fun. So we talk about, like, we actually calendar fun, we calendar breaks, we calendar study, like, yeah, the test is on Monday, but when is the study time? All that kind of stuff that we do. So they still know I'm their 911 if, whatever it is.
But the plan, putting the plan in place is so key.
Big.
I love that. And you know what? That goes for everybody. I mean, we kind of all need that. You know what I'm saying? So it's so good that you have found such a rewarding thing that you are doing in your life right now. And I think this is a great time to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to finish up with some, follow-up questions. And then I mentioned unique family situation that I absolutely love. We talked about our connection. So I invite you to listen in for our sponsors, because this show is driven by our small business sponsors. We got 4 of them. I'll talk about them in the break. And when we come back, we'll finish up our conversation with Jackie Coursey. Once again, Sacred Space Coaching. She is an autism life coach. Very fascinating conversation that we have going on here in episode 101. We'll be back with more on Experience the Buzz. First segment in the books. Hope you enjoyed that. It's now time to thank our sponsors, including R5 Stitch and Print, Pit Boss Jerky, Little Whale Swim School, and Matt the Mortgage Guy. All 4 of the people that run those businesses have been featured on this program. So again, I'm going to tell you, go back in the archives, check out their story. How did they get to where they are today? So Troy Rousey is featured in episode number 25. Joe Green of Pit Boss Jerky is featured in episode 26. Matt Gouget, better known as Matt the Mortgage Guy, that's right, specializes in mortgages, is in episode 28. And then we have Anya Hall, who we tell her story in episode 6. Giving you the rundown, starting with R5 Stitch and Print. You can get a hold of them. They specialize in screen printing and embroidery. The website, r5print.com, or you can call them at 916-454-3773. Make sure to check them out. They've done a lot of great work for this podcast on Experience the Buzz. If you like beef jerky, Pit Boss Jerky, best way to get your hands on the best beef jerky here in California. You just call the number, 916-769-6807. That's a direct line to Joe Green, the Pit Boss Master. He'll take care of you. We call that the order board. Then we have Little Whale Swim School, the premier swim school in Sacramento, located at 4106 El Camino Avenue. You can find them easily at littlewhaleswim.com. And their number is 916-790-5945. And finally, Matt Gouget, Matt the Mortgage Guy, MTMG, which stands for Matt the Mortgage Guy.com, or 916-802-9291. Those are our sponsors right here on Experience the Buzz. Very thankful to all four of them. Now let's get back to our conversation with Jackie Coursey.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss an episode of Experience the Buzz by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. It means everything. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back in. Yes, episode 101, Jackie Coursey. She is an autism life coach, Sacred Space Coaching. We're going to drop all the information in the notes. What I love about this podcast is I always say to myself, and I remember going into broadcasting as a youngster, I remember someone telling me, and I can't remember exactly who it was, probably a professor at college or something. They said, you never know who's listening, right? So when I was doing those radio broadcasts at KSCR, and the only place it went to was the dorm on the north side of the campus, it was like, okay, you never know who is listening. And I feel the same way about this podcast. And that's why I love having conversations like this, because in addition to me learning something brand new, which we're always learning, you never know who's listening. There's going to be someone like you out there that says, you know what, this is exactly what I'm looking for. And I absolutely love that. So we welcome back in Jackie Coursey, and coming out of the break, we had mentioned family. I mean, the family that you have, the unit, is incredible. We mentioned Ben, Emma, and Desmond, who I had the opportunity to teach when I was at St. Michael's for my 26-year tenure. They are now 21 years of age. You mentioned Desmond, now a sophomore in high school, 6'4". Wow. And then you also have a fourth member of the family, and don't mind sharing. I think this is great, because I think this truly what makes your family very beautiful, and why I was so attracted to you guys when you guys came in as a family at St. Michael's.
Oh, thank you so much. So all of my children are adopted, and when we had open adoptions, so when we would have a baptism or the adoption ceremony, the biological family is our family. I mean, we have holidays together, and we have relationships. And with Emma's family, we knew them very well, and they would be a part of what we were doing. And Emma had a couple sisters, and one of them, who's our Mimi now, 29 years old, and has given us a couple grandbabies, but she'd come see us when she was in high school and hang out and stay for the weekend. And then one day there was a crisis in her family, and she asked us to become her forever family. So at 15 or 16 years of age, we call her the baby of the family, because Desmond was already here, and Emma and Ben were already here, and Mimi was my last baby to come to the house. She was 15, 16 years old, but she, so it's been neat. So now that she has her own home and her own children, like they had a Halloween party last year, and we were all there together, and it's been beautiful. It's really been beautiful.
Just amazing how, you've kept everything included. There's no separation here. You really, and to me, that's just unique. I think that's unique to do, but it also speaks to your character. So when you think about, having 4 adopted children, your life in nonprofit to what you are doing now, as I always talk about the journey. Reflect on your journey. I mean, you have to be in a place right now where you're like, you know what? This is pretty good stuff.
Yeah, it's been a very good life. I am so thrilled that the father of my children, Don, who you knew also, who has been a great co-parent with me, that I'm so thrilled that he decided to come out to California. I followed him to UCLA back in the 90s. We landed here in December, and I remember leaving Michigan. We were Detroit kids.
That's
and
right.
Getting out here to California, and shorts and a t-shirt after taking my boots off and all that, and saying, I could live here forever. This is pretty good. I can come back and, go see the snow and shovel my mom's driveway once in a while, but I like this. And then when we decided to start a family, LA just didn't feel like the right place for us as Michigan kids to have our family. So Sacramento, I fell in love with because it is California, and we could be a diverse family. My kids are African American, and we could be here comfortably as a family and felt like people would be kind to us as we are. And then Sacramento also has a Midwestern feel, like your neighbors. And people in LA, we wouldn't always have eye contact. And so I felt like as a Michigan kid, like I'm dying to get home right now and have some cider, back at Yates Cider Mill that's been around since buggies and horses days.
Yeah.
But to be here in Sacramento, I could have both. I could have it feel like home, like the Midwest, and be in California. And then with work, what I did was I just always liked being in those helping professions. So, organizing the Heart Walk for, to fight heart disease. I had family members who had heart disease, working on disaster services in San Diego, the mudslides and the earthquakes, teaching people how to handle earthquakes. That all was so fun. But when I was at my last chapter and the kids were not wanting me in their space as much anymore, with the youngest being 15 now, I had to think about, what's this going to look like? Do I want to raise money or work on an event, but not see where it was going, like who it was helping? Like my last nonprofit job was Salvation Army, and I got a bunch of friends together and we fixed some apartments up so that people that were without homes could come in with their children and have warmth. It was the winter time, but I never got to go hang out with those people after. And it wasn't feeding my soul anymore. And so with coaching, I get to see the person in their life and see I don't want to say there aren't happy endings, because life is traumatic and beautiful and traumatic and beautiful. Boy, we know this, just in our time together, how much has happened in your life and my life, since our kids were walking into chapel together. But I get to see that and witness it and be the scaffolding for someone else. And a friend of mine calls it the witnessing, that you get to witness another human being's life. I love that. So that is, to me, the coolest gig in the world, is to learn someone's story, feel their pain with them, and then figure out, how can we lessen it? How can we have it be a little better tomorrow, and do that together.
I think
I'm having a good time. So, and so we do it in different ways in my job. I'm finding I really love doing the group work, because then it's a bunch of people in the room saying, oh, I tried this. And oh, do you want to get coffee another day? And that sort of stuff. So some new things we're doing are, I'm going to work with another coach who's out of the Denver area, and we're going to have a neurodivergent women's group in November and December, because let's face it, even though we're in 2022, women still usually have all the responsibilities of the holidays. Mm-hmm. So it's how do you survive that and actually thrive and have a good time and decide what you need, and take care of yourself and not take on all the responsibilities? What do you want the holidays to look like? So I'm going to be doing that with Danielle Sullivan in Denver. And then I'm going to be doing a neurodivergent professionals group starting in January, where professionals will get together and talk about, how do we handle a big thing that comes up with my clients? All that small talk everyone wants to do. They call it a meeting, but all they're talking about is the weather. How do you still end up getting the promotions when you don't want to, when you want to cut to the chase and just talk about the work, that kind of stuff. How do you put up with those people, or that eye contact they want all the time, Mm-hmm. For many of my clients, to look someone in the eye hurts. It actually physically hurts. And many of them, like my friend, they're looking at my eyebrow, he's looking at my eyebrows. He's not looking directly into my eyes, but it's like, we'll help with things like that about the noises in the office and the communication, with your boss and all those kinds of things we'll talk about as a group. So
yeah, and this speaks right to the entrepreneur piece, right? Like for a majority of this conversation, it's been about individual coaching that you've done. Yeah. But you can see there's so much more. And that's what I love about it is whatever space you are in, there are these opportunities to do like branch off, you know, just branch off and do other things. That's how I've lived my life.
Yeah.
I mean,
where's the need?
Yes,
right?
Yes. There's always a need. And for me, it's centered around children. In this case, it centers around broadcasting, which is my love. And just to see what you're doing, it's like, yeah, it just makes sense. Like you gave your heart and soul to your children and you still do. It's just a little bit different now because they're older and you were in nonprofit where, you were making a difference, but it was behind the scenes.
Right.
And now you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Right?
I feel it. I absolutely agree with you. Yep. It's good.
So I have to know this, like the list, kind of that short list. You've kind of hit on some pieces, ADHD, autism, things that maybe people, I don't know if you want to call them myths or whatever, but maybe that short list of, what would that be that people should know on an education sense?
Could you say that again? I somehow misunderstood.
No, that's okay. That's all right.
My husband walked behind the screen and I
saw him. He just went right there. It's okay. Yeah, no, that short list of what people, maybe they don't know about ADHD or autism, that would kind of enlighten them to say, oh, I didn't know that. Like you said, with autism, they're more literal. Like that's education.
Sure. Yeah. What tends to happen when you are neurodivergent, and we're mostly focusing on folks right now with autism and ADHD, is number one, there tends to be, and it's not for everyone, but it just tends to be that executive function is a lot harder. So figuring out, like, there's not a sense of time that many of us would have. And I have it too with ADHD. It's like, I can lose 3 hours on a project and then and not realize that it's that late. Like I have no idea. So let's say you're in a work setting, that can be very difficult, or to organize things. And so there's a lot of executive dysfunction, they say. So that is one big thing. Another thing that is huge is sensory. You're just wired differently on what you're sensitive to, and then also what you might need more sensory input from. So as an example, a very good friend of mine doesn't want to hear the chatter of an office and doesn't want to hear like the little noises that go on, the leaf blowers and all those kinds of things, but will play the loudest heavy metal music I have ever heard. I mean, like where you're trying to enough where the cops might get called, when the guitar is going and you're going, huh? But in a room, when I had my group of young adults together and that was being discussed, it's like everyone was nodding like, yeah, I don't like all those little noises, but when it's my noise, that works out well. But it can be a sensitivity to the clearing of a throat or the bright lights in an office, all those kinds of things. But then the sensory also can be sensitive in a good way of like knowing that you need maybe, like a weighted blanket or, a pet that you're snuggling up with, or like figuring out what your sensory, the positive things are. But they're, again, tend to be a little bit more on, I would call it on steroids than the general population would be, kind of thing.
So it's interesting because we're talking about this subject. My wife and I are binging right now, Call of the Midwife, which is on Netflix. And there is a character on there. His name, I think it's Benny, and he has autism. And the storyline real quick is, unfortunately his mom passed away. And this is, I forget where the time setting is. Oh man, it's hard to say, but it is such a great show. Well, he gets brought in by one of the families and everything. And so he's been a main character. And it was interesting because one of his things, when his mom would leave, she would point at the clock and say, okay, I'm going to be here when this is up and this is down. So it was like 6 o'clock, right? And he would focus on that clock, and she would say, don't touch any of the food. And there was all these little things. And it was interesting to watch that play out. And now watching this character develop, he's one of the great characters in the show. But it really reminds me, it's like, it's just cool to see. I mean, and he's just that character that just like warms your heart, and the way he speaks is so authentic, and you just feel the love. And that's the thing I would say with the autism people that I know, just that sense of love and care. It's like, it's beyond what's actually even human. It's like, it just feels like superhuman. Like,
well, I think there is not always a filter.
Yeah.
So if the person is feeling the love, you're going to know they're feeling the love.
Indeed.
If they're not happy with you, you're going to know. It's going to be very direct. But I think one thing that stood out for me is I was just thinking about what you were saying, and it's like, it'll be confusing for a teacher or a boss, because they'll be thinking to themselves, you are so smart. Why is your desk look like it does, or whatever? And that's a big thing, is very intelligent, people, just like everyone is. There's a lot of, but it doesn't mean because you're very bright that your executive function skills are where you'd like them to be. But it can be very confusing for people. I used to get this when I was a kid as an ADHDer, and Desmond gets it now, of like, why don't you just apply yourself? That kind of thing. And not realizing, because you're thinking,
that's a loaded statement there.
But it's repeated. Like I have to rewind myself, and I'm the same, I had the backpack with the sandwiches in there from 3 weeks ago, and because it was more fun to socialize. And then, my young man will do that, and and you're thinking, I don't get that. Or why did you, not finish the test, that last page, that kind of stuff. And it's like, you're thinking you're so smart. But I mean, that's just what comes with this territory is, there are different skill sets. But that, I would say the biggest things are executive issues and sensory issues are just huge when you are autistic. Your brain is operating differently. And I keep using the word neurodivergent or neurodiverse, and it's worth mentioning what I'm talking about. When I've been at fairs and had my booth, and people will say, what does that word mean? What I'm referring to, Steve, is anyone that has brain differences. It could be like I have a client with brain injuries. It could be that you're autistic. It could be that you have PTSD. It could be autism. It could be any kind of brain difference, Tourette's, dyslexia, anything. But it's meant to like kind of cover that whole umbrella of people that their brains are operating just a little differently, in positive and unique ways and in challenging ways.
Wow, that's so well done. Like, thank you for sharing that. Again, the education piece of this has been incredible, and I have learned so much. And so as we finish out, can you remind listeners and viewers what is the best way to get a hold of you? Website. Sure. I know you've got an Instagram, all that. Let's get it all out there and let people know.
Absolutely. The best way to find me is on my website, and it's sacredspacecoaching.net. And I am on Instagram as Sacred Space, and I am on LinkedIn both with Sacred Space and just as my name, Jacqueline Coursey.
Okay,
and
perfect.
Just look me up or send me a text. My phone number is on the website, and if I can help in any way, you or a family member, just give me a ring. Absolutely. And of course, that's the beauty of the connection, right? The ripple effect is what I call. Like, it may not happen tomorrow, but a year down the line, you always remember conversations and experiences that take place. And Jackie, I'm just glad that we got to meet when we did. And I know a lot of space has been in between to this moment right here, but that's the beauty of it. I have to share this moment with you because just the other weekend, I'm a wedding DJ, and I literally am walking past a guy, and the guy has his son with him. And I think it's his son. I'm not exactly sure. And he turns around and he goes, "Buzz." And I go, "What?" Turns out it was my best friend from high school who I have not seen since he was in my wedding. And I have been married almost 30 years. Oh my God. And Jackie,
think about that
Yeah.
space of time, right?
Yeah.
And then that conversation that night when we caught up, I was filled with so much joy because the main thing for me was you always wondered, like, what happened to my
Yeah.
good friend Sam Perry?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out he's married. He has 2 kids. It's beautiful. He got married later in life. But I was like, wow, God just dropped one of those, like, just kind of those fun little blessings on me. And so that's what I'm talking about the journey. And that's why I love it, is that we can connect even with that space of time that has gone by. And I'm very appreciative of that.
Oh, I am too. And I remember I was looking you up, like, what's Steve doing? You know, I need to look for my granddaughter. She needs to do
That's
Buzzard
right.
Ball. What's he doing?
Right.
He's doing a podcast. Well, I want to support that. So that's how we got together.
Exactly. And I'm still doing the basketball. So I welcome in the grandkids. I've already done some second generation stuff. It's crazy, but we absolutely love what we do. And I just want to thank you for taking the time. And thank you for being episode 101.
Yes, absolutely. It's been so much fun. Thank you, Steve.
All right, there she is. It's Jackie Coursey. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll either have a final word or we may throw in another segment of what we like to call Heavy Metal Thunder. So stay tuned. This is Experience the Buzz. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Jackie Coursey, representing episode 101. I don't know about you, but I learned a lot within that conversation, not only as a life coach, which we had Marie Kofer on the program to talk about, but an autism life coach, which was just a whole nother level, which I really enjoyed today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. Now, coming up, we have another installment of Heavy Metal Thunder, which, by the way, has taken off. It is amazing. The Heavy Metal Thunder and the first look, you've got to check it out for yourself. We were hovering in the single digits on subscribers, folks. We're closing in on 60, 70. And I know that don't sound like a big number, but that's a big number to me. And it's all about growth. But check it out. We are going to look at SLIPKNOT's latest album. So this is the first time that we've taken something new and featured it on Heavy Metal Thunder, but I give it a full rundown. It's called The End So Far, and that's coming up after we thank our sponsors. So let's get right to that. We want to thank Matt, the mortgage guy. That is Matt Gouget, who's featured on episode 28, mtmg.com, 916-802-9291. Matt Gouget is multi-talented. He has a YouTube channel where he educates you and me on mortgages, refinances, you name it. Does a live show every Monday at 6 o'clock. He's got over 700 videos. You heard it, 700 videos. And he just recently launched his own podcast, which is called Get Better Every Day. I invite you to check that out. I have actually been a guest on that show. You can check it out. I am featured in episode number 9. Matt, the mortgage guy, better known as Matt Gouget. Good stuff. Little Whale Swim School, premier swim school in Sacramento. I know we're moving into the fall. We've got the temperature down in the 70s now. Can you believe that's happening right here in Sacramento? Good stuff. But 4106 El Camino Avenue, they've got indoor facilities. They're year-round, and they're primarily teaching the kids, right? Because we want to get the kids very comfortable with being in the water, being in the pool. But there's also adult classes as well. You can find them at littlewhaleswim.com, or if you need a dial them on the phone, 916-790-5945. Pit Boss Jerky, best beef jerky. That's all I'm going to say. We've got a flavor named after the show. It's called Experience the Buzz. There are 13 flavors that have been put together by the mad scientist, the Pit Boss Master, Joe Green. And if you want to get your hands on the best beef jerky in Sacramento, you go to the order board, 916-769-6807. In addition to Experience the Buzz, latest to come out, White Bull's Barbecue. We got Raspberry Apple Chipotle, the Keto Mix, which is really good. And I think the most popular, Island Teriyaki. Good stuff right there. And that's just a few, to name a few. And finally, we want to thank R5 Stitch and Print, my good friend Troy Rousey at r5print.com, 916-454-3773. Yes, they specialize in screen printing and embroidery. I think a great addition to the business has been the graphic design artist. That's right. In-house will help you put together whatever it is you need for your business or personal needs. So there you have it, our 4 amazing sponsors right here on Experience the Buzz. And now let's go ahead and get to Heavy Metal Thunder featuring SLIPKNOT's The End So Far.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss an episode of Experience the Buzz by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. It means everything. Now, back to the show.
And here we are. So glad to be back with you, feeling very bright today, and glad you could join us for another installment of Heavy Metal Thunder. We are looking at, yes, the latest from SLIPKNOT. This was just released at the end of September. We're in October, so not even a month in. And the 7th studio album and the final album, for those of you that really look into the record industry, or the album industry, this will be the final album under the label, the Roadrunner Records label. So what does that mean for Corey Taylor and the boys? Well, Hive Mind I like, and there's a couple of other songs that I like as well. It's 12 songs, 57 minutes and 31 seconds. Actually ends up being the shortest album that SLIPKNOT has put out so far in their almost, I believe, 20-year career. Pretty amazing that they've been around for 20 years. They definitely have stood the test of time. It's got the 12 tracks on it. You know what my magic number is? 10. So I'm just going to say this out of the gate. Take off number 1, take off number 12. Adderall was not a great way to start this album. Sorry, okay? I understand that, as bands, you're looking to grow, expand yourself. But I don't know. I am just of the thought that if you're a heavy metal band, what got you there is what I just want to continue to hear. That's just me, okay? That is just me. I'll give you case in point. I've explained to you, Mastodon's my favorite band, okay? Up until the point when I think their 4th or 5th album, Crack the Sky, came out. When I first heard it, I'm like, oh, wow, this is weird. Now, listen, it took me some time. I gained an appreciation for it, was able to come back to it and say, yes. Now, looking at their last album that they just put out, Hushed and Grim, I didn't like it at all. It didn't sound like the Mastodon that I knew and came to love in 2006 when I saw them for the first time at Slim's in San Francisco, and they came in with my metal anthem, Blood and Thunder. Okay, back to SLIPKNOT. That's what I'm talking about. I want something to just kick it off. Now, listen, as a SLIPKNOT fan, the first time I saw them was actually at a Mayhem Festival. You may remember those. That was roughly about 5 or 6 years ago, and I believe that was when All Hope Is Gone came out, where it features Psychosocial. Saw it for the first time, and I had to admit, up until this point, my heavy metal journey, it has been like I would get to a spot and say, okay, that's crossing the line. For some reason, SLIPKNOT at one point in my heavy metal career was crossing the line. I mean, look at my migration, right? Van Halen, Metallica, Pantera, Sepultura. Like, SLIPKNOT was still there, and then finally, after I saw them in concert, I was like, okay, I am definitely a fan. So I came in before Subliminal Verses, Iowa, SLIPKNOT, which was their first 3 albums, with songs like Wait and Bleed, Duality, which is probably one of their best, Spit It Out, Before I Forget. Okay, so All Hope Is Gone. I see them. I'm on board. And so I've been through the Great Chapter, We Are Not Your Kind, and now the In So Far. So what I had to compare it to, I will just go back to the last album, We Are Not Your Kind. Okay? I'm sorry. The In So Far does not compare to We Are Not Your Kind. I listened to We Are Not Your Kind and loved every single track. So if I was reviewing that, it would get high marks because it was one that I kept in and just listened to over and over and over again. In fact, I'll release this little nugget of information. My favorite SLIPKNOT song, undoubtedly, hands down, Soul Way Firth. That to me is just the pinnacle of SLIPKNOT songs. Okay, you may agree or disagree. There's a lot of good ones out there. I am not denying that. So let's go ahead and kind of dive in. I know I've kind of been all over the map, but I am excited because it is cool to hear new material. And of the 12 tracks, I will tell you, I have my top 5. Okay, I have my top 5. You heard one of them coming in. Hive Mind, I really enjoy. That is a really good one. It's a little bit different, but still fits into that kind of that SLIPKNOT that I know. But I've got them at number 3. So Hive Mind is number 3 on my list. Now, the ones that you knew about were the releases that came out before they announced that the album was going to be released, and that was The Dying Song and the Chapeltown Rag. I remember hearing the Chapeltown Rag for the first time, and I'm like, yeah, okay, this is good. That was a good selection to come out with. Dying Song, I would just take it a tick under. Chapeltown Rag, okay? And I don't know why. It's just I didn't get the feels from it that I did from the Chapeltown Rag. And so Chapeltown Rag I have at number 2, and the Dying Song I have at number 5, okay? So that leaves us with 2 other selections. My number 4 selection is Medicine for the Dead. Now, a lot of these songs that are on this album really kind of went off the beaten path for me, okay? I just want SLIPKNOT. I want the SLIPKNOT that I know and love. You could try new things, but I am not into Stone Sour, okay? I know Corey Taylor has that side project. That's just not me. Give me the heavy, give me the thunder, bring it to me, right? Saka, saka, saka. That's all I want, okay? So the Dying Song, Medicine for the Dead, that had a little bit of a twist to it, but I liked it. So I put it at the number 4 spot. So what is my number 1 song? Well, it's interesting because you look at the title and you say, what does this mean? And so I had to look it up. And my number 1 song, and we're going to play it going out, is H377, okay? And so this is for Corey Taylor, and I say, quote, H377 is about embracing the fact that everybody hates you. It's the pure pleasure of group misanthropy. I hope I said that right. I realized a long time ago, this is Corey Taylor speaking, that not everybody is going to like me. Isn't that the truth, right? Largely because of my opinions and the fact that I don't keep my big mouth shut, and because of the fact that there's not one person on the planet who is loved by everyone. Yes, amen to that, right? And you look at the lyrics that kicks out, one of us knows who hates me, one of us loves it, right? That is such a great way to bring it about. And then, of course, you get that rattled off riffs. And it's very, I don't know, felt like very militant to me, which was kind of cool. This, to me, H377, my top track off this album, definitely has that SLIPKNOT flavor. So let's put it aside. So Yin, Warranty, Acidic, Heirloom, Decade, I think that's what it is. Adderall, which kicked it off. Finale, which was number 12. Listen, to me, I probably won't listen to those again. But here's the deal. When we go see SLIPKNOT in concert, are they going to be playing all 12 songs? No, they're going to take the best of the best. And so my suggestion on the set list would be the 5 I mentioned. I'll say it again at number 5, The Dying Song. You're definitely going to hear that one next time you see SLIPKNOT. Medicine for the Dead, you may or may not hear. Hive Mind, I think, will definitely make the cut. Chapeltown Rag, because it was the first release, they're definitely going to play that. And I would have to say, you've got to play H377. So that's 5 songs to add to the list of great songs that SLIPKNOT has put out. So what is my overall rating? Oh man, I feel terrible for this because my barometer is start to finish. And when Adderall came out, I just wasn't feeling it. I knew the Dying Song, which was number 2. The Chapeltown Rag, I knew, so I was familiar with that. Then I got Yin. I got excited when I heard Hive Mind, but got brought down when I heard Warranty. Medicine for the Dead, I was like, okay, a little better. Then it went Acidic, Heirloom, and then I got real excited with H377, which is the number 10 track. And then it just went downhill from there. I was done after Decade and Finale, or Sade. I don't even know what it is. So here is my final projection for you. I feel bad saying this. I love Corey Taylor. I love SLIPKNOT. I love what they do. I'm going to go see him in concert, no doubt about that. But I got to give this one a 7.7. Yeah, that's tough. But you know what? We're going to end on a good note. We're going to cue it up. My favorite song is coming in right now. You can kind of hear it. Great intro. H377 coming your way. Feeling good. And I'll tell you what, we'll do this again. Heavy Metal Thunder as we look at some of the greatest that are coming along, whether it be past, present, or maybe even future. Never know. In fact, make sure that you take a look at our first look. We're getting a lot of traction on that. My name is Steve Buzzard. To you metalheads, rock on! All right, episode 101 is in the books. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Jackie Coursey. Heavy Metal Thunder, SLIPKNOT. What do you think? Was I on? Was I off? I don't know, It wasn't their best one, but it was pretty good. There's at least 5 tracks on there that I think are pretty decent. The other 7, go ahead. All right. So with that said, that'll put this episode in the books. So I want to thank my producer, Michael Kenobi, for all his work. And of course, we got more coming your way. Very excited. Here we are. The next 100 episodes coming your way. And that's all I got for now. Talk to you next time. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you for joining Steve this week on Experience the Buzz. Steve would love to hear from you. Leave a review, or contact Steve directly with any questions at scbuzzard@gmail.com. To see the other adventures of Steve Buzzard, be sure to visit buzzardball.com.